Hey, Walter Sorrells back with more tips for the knife maker. Today, making a marker for etching your name or logo on the blade of a knife. So there are a wide variety of commercial products available out there that allow you to electro-etch your name or your logo or something else onto metal. And these are used commonly by custom knife makers to etch their logo onto the blades of knives. So in this video, I'm going to show how to make a little marker which will allow you to etch your name into the blade of a knife, or it could be your logo, whatever. Now, there are a number of different pieces of the equipment that are required to do this, a power source and some other things. All I'm going to be making here is the little marker itself. It's a sort of electrode that allows you to selectively apply current to the blade of the knife through a little stencil and produce the logo. So let's jump on into it. One of the best ways to personalize your knife is to etch your name or logo into the blade. The basic principle for electro-etching is pretty simple. A stencil is used to apply current through an electrolyte solution, causing the steel to selectively oxidize. You can oxidize a fairly superficial dark logo using AC, or actually etch a cavity into the blade using DC. I won't get into the details of that though. This video is not about the technique for etching logos, but about making your own electrode. I'll do another video in the not too distant future about the actual process of etching the logo. I'll be using a piece of Delrin round bar, a 3-inch long 1/4 bolt, some 1/4 by 1-inch rectangular brass stock, wire, epoxy, solder, some banana plugs, and an alligator clip. Some of the tools I'll use will be kind of fancy, but you really don't need to do it the way that I do it. Speaking of fancy tools, I'll begin by facing my plastic stock. As I said, it's Delrin, also known as acetal. Then drilling a 1/4-inch hole through the center on my lathe. Yes, of course, you can do this with a hand drill. Look, I'm a guy, so naturally I believe, why use a small hammer when you can use a big one? In all seriousness though, by doing it on a lathe, that gives me a nice hole right dead through the center of the stock, whereas it's a little harder to do that if you're doing it with a hand drill. But it'll work either way. Then I'll countersink another larger hole to admit the head of the 1/4 bolt. I think it's a 5/8 inch hole, but this is not a precision job. It's just a clearance hole, just enough to allow that head to fit. Now I'll cut 2 1-inch long pieces of brass stock. I'll drill a 7/32 inch hole and then tap it with 1/4 threads. I say I used a 7/32 inch drill, but you know, it might have been something else. In theory, you're supposed to use a number 7 drill when you tap a 1/4 thread. Now, I've been making knives for 15 years and I still don't have a complete set of numeric sized drills. As long as you're careful, especially with brass, which machines really easily and beautifully, using the next fractional size bit below the official tap size drill will work fine. Just don't let the machinist police catch you. Now I'll grind the oxide layer off my 2 pieces of brass and braze them together using silver solder. I was going to use electrical solder, but at the last moment I chickened out and went with silver solder because it's so much stronger. Bigger hammer, right? I'm using extra soft silver solder and boric acid for flux. Then heat them up till the solder flows. It'll create a nice solid mechanical joint and a joint through which electricity flows easily. Hey, let me interrupt for a quick plug here. You know, it takes a ton of work to make these videos. I try to use the best cameras, lights, audio equipment. I do voiceovers. I take, close-up shots. It's all to help you learn more efficiently. If you want to help me make more and better videos, click the link for Patreon. It's a service I've joined forces with recently that helps creators and patrons, kind of find a way to help each other out. So if you value this channel, show the love, baby. All right, let's get back to it. Next, I clean up the brass on my belt grinder. Then I trim the bolt so that it was just long enough to tighten the brass onto the bottom of the electrode. Using a torch and electrical solder, I'll solder a piece of 18 gauge wire to the head of the brass bolt. From an electrical load standpoint, I could probably get away with much thinner wire, but I want it to be physically sturdy. Then I used epoxy to seat the bolt and to seal the electrical connection into the head of the electrode or marker. This minimizes the danger of shocking yourself when you hold it. And more important, it creates a mechanical lock on the wire, so you'd really have to jerk on it pretty hard to break the connection to the bolt. I used a coloring intended for guitar lacquer to color the epoxy red. Why? Because it looks cool. Now, I just mentioned the danger of shock. This thing doesn't run a ton of juice, so it's not really a danger factor. Have I tried it? Yes, I've actually intentionally shocked myself in a carefully controlled way, and it's really nothing severe. That said, obviously if you touch the end of the marker, it is hot, and you can shock yourself, but if you're careful, you won't do that. The issue is more that you don't want it to be uncomfortable to use. That's why I've sealed the top of it. If you're concerned about shocking yourself, of course, you could shroud the brass marker face too. I've seen designs that have a little box-like thing that fits around the head of the marker, and you can feel free to figure out a way to do that if you want, but I don't really think it's necessary. I also soldered an alligator clip to a second wire, then soldered banana plugs to the other ends to fit into my power supply. And that's all she wrote. Then I used the electrode to put the Tactics Armory logo on my new blade. Nice and clean, easy to see. So if you saw me applying the etch to the knife, that was part of my new Tactics Armory line of blades that I'm going to be kind of rolling out during the course of this year. If you're interested in purchasing one, check out my website, waltersorrellsblades.com, where you can find a variety of those sorts of knives for purchase. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, here are a couple of other videos that you might be interested in. Also, like me on Facebook at Walter Sorrells Blades, and check out my website, waltersorrellsblades.com, where you'll find examples of my work along with instructional videos showing all aspects of Japanese sword making, including forging and polishing, how to make hamones, and how to make fittings, scabbards, and handles for Japanese swords.